All right, guys, this is Dr. Clark coming to you answering question number 6 on the Market Power Challenge recap. Trying to go through this really tough problem to understand some other components about price discrimination and also just calculating monopoly profits and dealing with producer surplus versus profit here. Okay, so the question reads, suppose a profit maximizing monopolist is able to engage in perfect, i.e. first degree price discrimination and faces a demand curve for its product given Q equals 20 minus 0.5p. The monopolist has a total cost function of TC equals 24 plus 4Q. How much will the monopolist's profits be? So we have to keep in mind here that we have this first degree price discrimination. Our demand curve is given here as Q equals 20 minus 0.5p, and our total cost function is 24 plus 4Q. I also have some hints in the homework as to how you can go about this, because if you're just given this, you might not even know where to start. But my first hint is like, how much does total cost increase with each additional unit sold? So when you increase the sales by one more, if Q goes up by 1, how much does your total cost go up? And what would this number represent? Well, if you look at this, if you increased Q by 1 more, if you kept going up by 1 more, what would happen? You would end up with 4 more added to your total cost. This is representing our marginal cost. Another way of going about this, though, is to just simply take TC equals 24 plus 4Q and take the partial derivative of this function with respect to Q, and you will see that the first derivative of a total is its marginal. Right? So if we take the derivative of total cost, we're going to get the marginal cost when we do it with respect to Q here. And when we do this, what ends up happening is we are left with, well, just 4. Right? And so we end up with the same answer here, that our marginal cost here is equal to 4. Okay, now we can start hint number 2, and we can try and find the inverse demand function to identify the demand choke price. So our demand function is given here, where we have this Q equals 20 minus 0.5p. We can rearrange this so that we have 0.5p is equal to 20 minus Q. We can multiply both sides by 2, and we end up with 40 minus 2Q is our inverse demand function. Now, when we've done this, we can say, well, what's the demand choke price was kind of the hint that we have here. Well, at a quantity of 0, we can see what the demand choke price would be, and the demand choke price is going to be 40. Right? So we can say our choke price of the demand curve is 40. So that's another given that we kind of have here. And so we can use this to continue on through and try to solve the problem from here. So we're not really quite done with hint number 2 here, though, because we also want to find the quantity, the equilibrium quantity of the kind of competitive outcome. Because we're engaging in first degree price discrimination, we could see that we would have this demand function that would go like so, but we would also have this marginal cost function that we know is held constant at 4. Right? And so we have marginal cost is held constant at 4. If we're engaging in first degree price discrimination, we are going to go through and we're going to sell every unit along the demand function all the way down. Right? We are going to keep going along that demand function. So we're going to eat up all of the exchanges that we possibly can. Right? So we're going to end up at this quantity right here where marginal cost is equal to the demand function. So what we can do is we can simply say, okay, well, what if we are at a price of 4? Where are we at on this demand function? Well, our demand function is Q equals 20 minus 0.5, and then we are at a price of 4, right? And so if we do 0.5 times 4, we have 2. 20 minus 2 gives us at a quantity here equal to 18. And so we know our quantity within this setup is also equal to 18. And so we can kind of go from here and we have even more information. So now we have 18 is here. And then we also know that this demand choke price where this intersects is 40. So now we have quite a bit of information to go with, because now we can kind of calculate a number of different things, including a triangle formed by these 3 points. The triangle formed by these 3 points will have this height of 36, the 40 minus the 4, and the distance here is 18, from 0 to 18. So we can actually calculate the area of this triangle. This triangle should represent the producer surplus that we acquire when we have first degree price discrimination. So we can do 1/2 base times height. So 1/2 times 36 times 18 gives us an area of 324. And that is our producer surplus, is equal to 324. So now we have even more information that can go into answering our question, where we're trying to calculate the profits that we have from this basic setup here. And so now we can go on to hint number 3. We can think about, well, okay, we have producer surplus, but the question asked, how much will this monopolist profits be? Well, what's the difference between producer surplus and profits? Well, producer surplus is a short-run calculation, whereas profit is a long-run calculation. Profit is looking at total revenue minus total cost, whereas producer surplus is just dealing with the variable costs that we have and not the fixed costs. So one thing that we could do to make this quite easy is actually to just take the producer surplus minus our fixed costs, and what we should see then is actually our profit, right? Because the only difference between the profit and producer surplus is that profit also figures in our fixed costs. So how do we know what our fixed costs are, however? Right? Where do we know what our fixed costs are? Well, again, we can look at this total cost function here, and we can see what our fixed costs are. What are our costs when we have a quantity of 0? Right? If our quantity is instead 0 here, we have 4 times 0, then that's going to zero out. Our total costs, if we had no quantity produced, is simply 24, right? And so we have 24 as our fixed cost. So 24 is our fixed cost. Well, we already know our producer surplus is 324 minus our fixed cost gives us our profit of 300. So our profit would be 300. We could also do this a little bit longer winded here, and you could go through our graph and look at the marginal cost being 4, right? And the demand curve here with our first degree price discrimination coming in at this quantity of 18 and our choke price of 40 here. And you could calculate all of the totals of all of the marginal cost would give you your variable cost, right? And so your variable costs would be this 4 times 18 would give you all of your marginal costs or your variable costs. And so that would be 72 would be your variable costs, plus your fixed costs as we calculated before. You have that 24. Right, so you have your variable costs, your fixed costs, and that is equal to your total cost of 96. Right, so you could say, okay, total cost is 96. That's great. For this amount of production, our total cost is 96. But then we also need to know our total revenue. Well, our total revenue is going to be, for each of these units, we charge, the entire price. We charge the amount that we get in producer surplus plus the marginal cost for each unit that we sell. And so we could simply calculate the area of this triangle and also this rectangle here, and that would be our total revenue for all of those units sold. So again, we can do 4 times 18 gives us that 72, plus then the area of this triangle. So we could have 72 total revenue is equal to that 72, plus then we know our producer surplus, 324. And so our total revenue is quite simply then 396. So total revenue minus total cost gives us our profit. And so our profit is, again, calculating it this way, the same answer. It's 300. just a kind of different way of going about it. All right, so that was question 6 from this Market Power Challenge recap. Hopefully that helped you guys out a little bit. If not, come and see me and ask some more questions.